Swimming like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond in the shrimp tank.
Welcome back to another episode of the Shrimp Tank, coming to you virtually from Seattle and the entire PNW, the still sunny and warm Pacific Northwest. If you want to learn how to start, grow, or run a successful business, you are in the right place. This is the podcast for you. It's where we say street smarts and book smarts collide. Hello again, everyone. I'm Dan Whedon, and I'm joined by my co-host today, Craig Swanson. Our guest is Josh Huisenga. Josh is a true artist at heart, whose passion for design has been etched in his soul. His is an inspiring journey that unveils the artistic genius behind some of today's most captivating brands. From the serene landscapes of Montana State University to the vibrant streets of Seattle, Josh's artistic odyssey took flight in the late 90s. After crafting the identity of a young and ambitious Amazon, he realized his true calling and stepped out to carve his own path. And that's when Chalkbox Creative was born, a hub where ideas are transformed into powerful brands that thrive, evolve, and endure. Get ready to dive into Josh's remarkable journey, unlocking the secrets of building brands for growth and sustainability. Welcome, Josh. We'll be with you in just a minute. Everyone, you can find us wherever you get your podcasts. We're on iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, Stitcher, and YouTube. I like to say we are ubiquitous. We come to you from about a dozen other cities, including the mothership in Atlanta. And we're now open for business on our patron membership, the Shrimp Peelers, offering exclusive content to grow your business and enrich your life. You'll find access on our website at shrimptankpodcast.com/Seattle. Now, before we bring on Josh, it's my pleasure to welcome back our co-host, Craig Swanson. Hello, Craig.
Hello, Dan. It is good to see you again. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. The weather's beautiful. I've been getting out. I've been playing some golf. I've been having fun. How are things with you?
This is recruiting weather in Seattle. Like, this is the time of year where Seattle's the most beautiful area in the entire world. Long days, beautiful weather, just everything.
I couldn't agree more. And, somebody, who might be in some sort of a romance or love story could say, we'll always have Seattle, because in the classic Casablanca, that's what Rick said to Ilsa, we'll always have Paris. And, or no, maybe she said that to him. I think she said it to him. The reason I bring all of that up is I watched Casablanca this last weekend for about the 7th time. I love the movie. The first time I saw it, Craig, it was 40 years ago. I was interested, want to learn more, watch the movie. Now it's been 40 years later. Holy cow, the movie's 80 years old. And it dawned on me in watching it, and it was nice to watch it on HBO Max because there were no commercials. It's only an hour and 42 minutes. And everything is really simple about it, including what I would call its branding. The acting, the writing, there's beauty in its simplicity. One of the things I was thinking about was there's some classic lines in there. Not only we'll always have Paris, but here's looking at you, kid. And did you know this? The Play It Again, Sam branding is not actually correct. You knew that.
I knew that. I had heard about that. I don't actually remember what the correct line is.
Play it. Play it. That's it. Very simple. It was never Play It Again, Sam. Ilsa said, the wonderful Ingrid Bergman said, play it for old time's sakes. And then Bogart, in his famous line, said you could play it for her, play it for me, play it. But the Play It Against Sam, I don't know what happened, but it became a brand in and of itself. In fact, I know people who have kind of used that as takeoffs. Anyway, I wanted to throw that out to you. I don't know if you have any other movies or if you've seen Casablanca. Any comments on any of that?
No, I mean, I actually went through, in the early COVID days, a process of basically trying to watch all the major movies from every decade because you had to do something when you're at home. And I had not seen Casablanca up until just 2020. And but I was struck how we see so many of these really fantastic movies from the early days repeated in echoes of themselves, where I will go, oh, that's where that meme originated. That's where that came from originally. Mhm.
Well, that leads us to talking to Josh Huisenga a little bit about branding and what he's doing. Josh, we're going to welcome you in. You don't have to talk about Casablanca. I'm not going to put you on the spot on that, but I do want to hear a little bit about what you do, because your business is about creating memorable content for your clients who are in business. Josh, welcome to the show. Tell us a little bit about how you got into this business.
Thanks, Dan and Craig. I have been drawing and making things since before I could read. And my time spent in school was lots of drawing, and I ended up at Montana State University studying chemical engineering inexplicably. That did not go well for me, so I went across campus and met the dean and joined the design program at Montana State. And after I left there, I could go to Minneapolis or I could go to Seattle. I had friends going to both places. I chose Seattle, and here I am. I spent a little time at Amazon, 5 years. I did not craft their entire identity, but I worked in the brand identity team. Just want to clarify that I'm not taking credit for someone else's
I'm just going to
work.
say, I figured you might. Let's just say I did a little hyperbolic type of work there on your behalf.
Okay, misconceptions a lot. And like a lot of people, it was great for a while, and then it was not as great. So I left and started Chalkbox, and that was almost 2 decades ago.
It's fantastic. So
yeah.
I love graphic design. And I kind of feel like a lot of business owners, it kind of falls into business owners that understand the value of branding and like what it means for their company from a bottom line standpoint, and then business owners that tend to not really put an emphasis on how they appear and how they show up. So like, could you describe like who you work with and what type of companies really benefit from the way they are visually branding themselves?
I'll start with the first part, who we work with. Who we like to work with right now is people who are just coming out of or going through the integration process after a merger, an acquisition, family succession. If the second generation is taking over, partners are doing a succession as older partners retire. And in that group, we're doing a lot of work in professional services, business to business. So think about law firms, consulting firms, financial firms, things like that. And then we have this other side where we're doing stuff with manufacturers and distributors. And in all those cases, we're usually working with the owner's managing the business, and we're helping them to improve, capitalize on what they just took over, make it their own, make it better, make it what they want it to be and what it needs to be. Often things have been neglected by a previous owner who's just been in it so long, they get comfortable, they get complacent, and they don't give it the attention that it needs.
That's really fascinating. So I was actually going to ask as a follow-up for that, what are the types of things that come up? I mean, so they're coming in, they've got fresh, is it just a matter of having fresh energy? Is it a matter of like shifting the brands? What are the types of things that new owners or new management teams are really looking at when they bring you in to talk about branding?
That's a good question. There are some need to haves and some nice to haves. Need to have is if the name of the business is changing. It's obvious something has to be dealt with. If two businesses are combining, sometimes one goes away and one stays, sometimes they both go away, sometimes something new is born. All of those are going to require some amount of work, even if it's just retiring one brand. The nice to haves are, I'll share an example. We have a client who took over the family business from his parents. The brand the business was 30 years old. The brand had been kind of adjusted over that time, but everyone in it was so familiar with it and so comfortable with it that it was hard to, and this is true for anything, including the pile of paper on the corner of my desk. After a while, you stop seeing it objectively or at all. And he took over, and he knew that it needed to change, and but he knew he couldn't just flip a switch. His customers he doesn't want to confuse. He has employees he doesn't want to frighten. He has a dealer network that doesn't know him and needs to trust him before he can start asking them to spend money on implementing new branding. So all sorts of different things come up, and there's usually some kind of continuity issue. We don't want to break. We want to change the tire while the car is still moving, but we don't want to break anything, and we want to be able to grow, but we don't want to break what's already working. Yeah.
So, branding is one of those words that probably at times we think we know what it means, but may need some more defining. And when I first hear branding, the first thing that pops into my head is a logo. That's for whatever reason that comes in first. But branding is certainly more than that. It's more than a logo. It's website, and it's a whole lot of other things. Can you go through, at least what your work is, how branding is defined, and how it differs for clients depending on what they're doing?
Sure. How much time do you have? The way we sort of summarize it is your brand is what everybody thinks about you. So Pepsi's brand is not their logo. It's what everybody perceives Pepsi to be. Pepsi's awesome. That's part of their brand. Pepsi's gross. That's part of their brand, even if they don't want it to be. So your brand is the collective perception of your organization. Brand strategy is the plan to maintain or change that perception, and branding, the way that we use it, is all the stuff you do to execute the strategy to change that perception. So yes, it includes your logo. Yes, it includes your podcast. Yes, it includes the kind of language you use. Yes, it includes the instructions and how you write those. Yes, it includes everything that you do, how you behave, how you speak, how you interact with the community, and what you look like. The part that we deal with most directly is the visual piece of that, visual identity, the brand identity part.
Oh, that's fascinating. So I'm curious, when you're working with entrepreneurs, especially in moments of transition, how much energy you're putting into the brand they want to have that maybe they haven't yet earned in the marketplace yet, versus solidifying the brand ownership that they have? Like, what are you playing with? Are you playing with today, or are you playing with tomorrow when you're working with the management team?
That's a great question. We talk about designing for where you're going. There's the Gretzky quote, "Skate to where the puck is going to be." If we create something visual for where a company is right now, and the competitors they're facing right now, the market where it is right now, and their audience and customers where they are right now, that kind of drops an anchor, and it's going to be hard for them to grow beyond that, especially if they're in a business where they're serving this kind of customer, but they really want to get up here and serve a larger customer, more sophisticated customer, competing against higher level other companies. So we do a lot of work to find out where they want to go. We're not going to design for your customer today. We want to design for the customer 5 years from now, so that when you have those opportunities, when those people are in front of you, you already look ready for them. That theoretically means you can get there faster. You're ready for it.
Well, Josh, this has been a great first start. What we are now ready to do is to pay some bills, and we're going to do that by taking a short break to hear from our sponsor. And when we come back with our guest, Josh Huisenga, for our Hot or Not section of the show, we're going to talk about logos. Don't walk away. We'll be right back with more of the Shrimp Tank. EO Accelerator is a coaching program for Seattle area business owners who want to grow their existing small businesses beyond million in annual revenue. As a small business owner, you face new challenges every day, whether it's deciding how you're going to fill a rush of new orders, puzzling out to where to find new customers, or sweating about making payroll. You find yourself wishing you had an instruction manual for your business. At EO Accelerator, our mission is to empower entrepreneurs with the tools, accountability, and community to aggressively grow and master their business. This is more than theory. This is entrepreneurs helping entrepreneurs, with top Seattle business leaders who have been where you are, volunteering as coaches and mentors in the Accelerator program. Because listen, the hustle will only get you so far. The next level of success is a team story. It's team sport. Want to hit $1 million in revenue? Join the club.
Hey, Dan, thank you very much. And welcome back to the Shrimp Tank, where we interview the best and the brightest CEOs and business thought leaders in the greater Puget Sound area. I'm Craig Swanson, and our guest today is Josh Huisenga for our next segment, Hot or Not.
Josh, this is where Craig and I are going to pepper you with questions about business, about life, about logos, who knows, whatever. And you're going to tell us if it's hot or not and why or why not. You know, logos, and I mentioned that as my thought about brands. Logos certainly play a huge part. Where we all, if people are watching, we have logos on. Every single one of us has a logo in our background. Hot or not, changing or reimagining logos every few years, and maybe as part of your answer, when is the right time to think about your logo?
Changing is will depend, but evaluating it every couple of years, looking at where it sits in a competitive landscape, who your clients actually are, and what they're actually looking at out in the world. It should be constantly evaluated. Some businesses are going to want to make a change of some kind, whether it's the logo or not, something around the logo every few years. Some companies, like a trust company, might be able to ride something for 10 or 15 years because it's so stripped down and conservative that it fits no matter how old they get, I guess. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, and I guess I'll just as a quick follow up. I mean, I guess I kind of grew in business during the day where there was like a fear of, oh, we can't change the logo. That's our brand. That's what people think of us. If we change the logo, we're gonna mess everything up. It feels like, and even in your answer, it feels like, hey, no, it's okay. We can consistently, like we do with every other strategic thing we do, we can consistently look at our logo and make improvements as necessary, because that's part of good business.
Yes, absolutely. And if you haven't changed it in 20 years or 30 years, that's probably a problem that you may or may not be aware of.
Yeah.
You know, I was thinking about this for my own self. So I've got a hot or not, kind of traditional business stationery. I always wonder now how necessary it is for me to carry business cards in today's world, or when I need to like rarely write a letter, I realize I don't have any letterhead anymore in my business. So hot or not, traditional paper business cards and stationery.
These are hard.
It was never going to be easy, Josh. I just want you to know it's never going to be easy.
I will say hot, but with some caveats. Business cards, people still ask us for business cards. Especially now that some in-person events are happening again. Business cards are being exchanged, but the print runs are much, much, much smaller than they used to be. I can't even remember the last time we produced pre-printed letterhead for someone. Everything is a Word template because documents are being sent digitally, or you can just print out your letterhead as you print the letter in your printer. Envelopes, sometimes the things that we're seeing replace some of that are PowerPoint presentation templates that are branded, so that you're not using the canned one that Microsoft provides, other Zoom backgrounds, things like that people need and should be or could be branded that didn't exist 15 years ago.
Well, you probably don't know this, but Craig and I, when we're not podcasting together, we like to talk about AI stuff. It's one of those things that we've done a couple times now for our patron page, and we'll continue to do because it seems to be ramped up. So hot or not, AI in the creative process and work of branding.
It's a hot topic right now. There are, wow. It's really interesting. There are some things that we don't enjoy doing manually, like parsing research or summarizing a list of things. But there are some things that we do enjoy, like drawing and developing concepts, is sketching and thinking through things. So internally we're still sort of figuring out how do we use this, how do we use it, where do we use it, where do we draw the line, where do we not use it. We don't want to, right now we're not going to ask AI to create a logo or something like that. That's legally fuzzy right now, but it's also not the way to do it. I read an article yesterday. I think Adobe's employees are concerned that Adobe's embrace of AI is going to cannibalize the design customer base because more people can do things without a designer. So who's going to need the software? My other concern is, how do new designers out of school, how do they learn the fundamentals? They might be able to learn the technology faster if AI can do that, but how do they understand what to think about or what questions to ask or how to put together something that fits a strategy when they don't have to learn the hard way or through repetition and doing that lower level entry work that we all did in whatever kind of career we started in.
That's actually a really good point. This generation may get a lot out of AI, but what does it lead to in the next generation? I want to so I had one for just a simple one, but hot or not, videos on website where the video is the primary website.
It's like going to a website to watch TV, I guess. We don't see that, so I would say that maybe that's not hot enough yet for us to be seeing a lot of that. It's usually a subordinate component of a website for us, but that may change.
Well, and I'm going to kind of piggyback on top of that. I mean, and maybe it's kind of more of the use of videos. And again, sometimes it's telling a small commercial. Sometimes it could be, what they're using YouTube for and putting videos on there. From a visual standpoint, do you see just where we are in the world today and the use of YouTube and Vimeo and all of that is having some sort of a video component? Is that helpful?
I think it certainly can be. One, as a interesting visual, a lot of websites will have, their key message right up front with some movement, some video behind them. Yeah. But also, some people consume information differently. Some people don't. If you present them with 5 paragraphs of text, they're never going to read it. But if you present them with 30 seconds or 20 seconds or even 10 seconds of video, they might totally go for that. This is kind of unrelated. My son's learning to juggle. When I learned to juggle, I learned from a book, which is kind of bizarre if you really think about how do you learn to juggle from a book. He learns from short YouTube videos, and he is way beyond me in just 2 months, way beyond anything I ever learned how to do. So different modes of communication fit different people or different situations. Yeah, it's a good question.
All right. Well, I'm curious. So, hot or not, being your own client, what about when you have to rebrand yourself?
It's awful. It's terrible. Especially when you're also in the business. It's hard enough for our clients to remain objective and step outside of their business to look at it as an owner or an outside party. When you're also doing the work, I'm probably the worst client we've ever had. Nitpicky, perfectionist, it's not quite there, it's not quite there, all the delays. And of course, it's hard for it to be at the top of the priority list when you have paying clients who are also on that list. So it's really hard. It's really hard, and we've been reevaluating some of ours recently, and it's just really hard.
Well, I would think I've got two follow-ups because I think it would be important though, because people are looking to your website and all of that, and they want to see something that is fresh and new and all of that. So in a sense, you kind of have to be that. It becomes important as well. But you said something during the previous answer that I thought was really interesting, because you're right. Everybody learns a little bit differently. You're talking about your son learning to juggle. How hard is it for you as the builder of the brand to say, okay, we have several different learning styles. We have visuals, we have kinesthetic, we've got auditory, we've got all of that, to build, websites and branding around every different type of potential learner. How hard is that?
I think it's really hard. And if I'm very transparent, we are usually not producing content for our clients' websites. So some of that is just handed to us in whatever form it is. We are always trying to understand what that person's customers are coming to the site to do, and make sure that they can find it as easily as possible, whether they are an 80-year-old with bad eyesight, or a person who doesn't speak that language primarily, or who doesn't have time, or who's limited in their screen size because they're standing on a bus and trying to hold their phone and operate it with the same hand. All these kinds of things that come into it. But as for the different ways of learning, like communicating through video or infographics or text, we can and do advise on some of that, but some of it's also out of our hands.
How about I was thinking about this when you're describing the consumers, or the lady on the bus trying to use this. What's more important, beauty or functionality?
Form follows function, Craig.
Mm-hmm.
Has to work. It really has to work. If it doesn't work, you might as well not. It doesn't. It's just a beautiful turd. Yeah, that's a really short answer. Form follows function, always.
One of the things that you mentioned at the very beginning, kind of about your clients, is like there's been a merger, there's been an acquisition, there's been a change, there's been something in that realm. I'd love to have you share with anybody listening, what usually brings people to you outside of maybe being referred. Somebody listening say, boy, I'm really interested in what Josh does. What's the process that you have for bringing in new clients?
Most of our clients historically are word of mouth, and we tend to serve clients for a number of years. So our new business needs are generally smaller than some firms that don't stay on with clients for a while. But yes, most of that comes word of mouth. We do get found online, and through networking, we get introductions, things like that. But the reasons, the things that are going on in their business, again, if they've just taken over a business, unlike the previous owner, they're probably more motivated to really assess what the competition is doing. And that can be an eye opener. If you grab we'll go back to logos, even though that's not the only thing. You grab the logos of your current top competitors and your future top competitors, you throw them on a page with your own. How do you really stack up objectively? They can also be more objective because they have not been living in the business, unless you're second generation, and then maybe it's the only place you've ever worked. But because it's not theirs, they haven't had 20 years or 10 years or 5 years to get familiar with it and sort of unsee it. I think they just see room for improvement.
Well, we're going to take a short break to hear from our sponsors. And when we come back with our guest, Josh Huisenga, for our Plead the Fifth section of the show, we're going to jump in the DeLorean, go back 20 years or so when Josh first started, and talk about some of the changes. Don't walk away. We'll be right back with more of the Shrimp Tank. And Plead the Fifth is brought to you by our corporate sponsors, Ideal Life 360, Cornerstone Financial, First Underwriters Insurance, BC Fitness Studio, Port Ludlow Resort, and Upstart Group. Please visit our website at www.shrimptankpodcast.com/Seattle to learn more about these terrific companies. Now back to the show.
All right. And folks, welcome back to the Shrimp Tank, where we are interviewing the best and the brightest business thought leaders in the greater Puget Sound area. I'm Craig Swanson, co-host, and our guest today is Josh Huisenga for our next segment, Plead the Fifth.
So Plead the Fifth, we're going to turn up the heat a little bit. We're going to turn up the heat a little bit, Josh, and we're going to ask some tougher questions, maybe. And you get a chance to plead the fifth, but you can only plead the fifth once. I think you're going to not be a fair catcher. I bet you're going to take all of these. Now, listen, I'm in the 18. This month is 18 years since I started my business. So I'm going to go back, let's say 20 years, and I can look back at my own business and say, man, it doesn't even look the same. I've got to believe that your world looks completely different than when you started 20 years ago. Plead the fifth. What is the biggest change that you could not have even I thought about when you first started your business that you're doing today?
Having employees. That was an enormous mental hurdle for me to get over, because I was a technician who started freelancing after I left my job and I needed to pay rent. Turning that into a business was really just formalizing my role in that way. But getting over my own hangups about having other people depending on me for their livelihood, or trusting that I could handle the I guess complications that come with it was a big deal, and I waited way too long. So, but it's great. I love it.
All right, plead the fifth. What is currently keeping you awake at night?
This is an interesting year, as lots of other business owners are aware, and we almost nobody ever calls us on the phone, but I will say the phone isn't ringing as often as it used to, or that we'd like it to. That is keeping me. That is the source of my primary source of my current anxieties.
Tell me what your reaction to the word. So plead the fifth. What's your reaction to the word impossible? And see, what Josh doesn't know is dead air is just like death on this is still radio.
Sorry.
And so,
I was also thinking that too, because it doesn't on the video side for Facebook.
Video, yeah,
it doesn't
he's very
switch
thoughtful
until someone talks.
Yeah, Josh is very thoughtful, but on the radio side, people are going, did I just lose them? So Josh is currently thinking. Josh, do you have something up for us?
Yeah, sorry about that. I'll have to make a thinking noise next time.
That's enough. It's a great one.
Impossible is I I'm trying to instill on my son a different interpretation of impossible than I actually observe. For me, lots of things feel impossible, and many of those I will never test. Having employees was impossible, so I have tested some of them.
I love that. I love that. So trying to teach your son, I just like, I'm just taking that in. Prove impossible first. Like, in other words, like prove from experience something's impossible as opposed to assume. I like that. I'm gonna do a kind of a cliche graphic designer one, a potentially cliche. Desert Island, you have 2 fonts for the rest of, for the rest of your career. What 2 fonts are you gonna pick?
These fonts are type families, Craig.
Oh shoot, they're type families. You're right. You've got a little bit of a variety in there.
One that we use for one of our clients right now is Freight, which is fantastic. It's got different styles and weights in it. Very versatile, very contemporary, but can be used for traditional or more conservative things as well. Freight is a great one. I can tell you what I'm not going to take. I'm not going to take Gil Sans. I'm not going to take the usual joke fonts, Comic Sans, Papyrus, those ones. Anything on the default list doesn't get to go on my desert island. Okay. Freight's good, and I'm kind of blanking on anything else.
Wow, right, so you cut it down to 1. I love it.
I'm going to ask a question. I guess it's kind of a plead the fifth, but I'm always amazed by what I'll call the artists of the world. And I'm going to throw you into that, where somebody will come in and say, I need a logo for my business. This is what I do. This is the name. Go build something. And I mean, I wouldn't even know where to start. Can you talk about just the creative part of saying, okay, I've got to build, or I got to rebrand, or I got to do something. I'm going to come from scratch with a logo or some branding around that. How does that process work for somebody like you?
That's a really good question. Again, how much time do we have? But I will say the first most important thing is to really understand what's needed. So if a client comes to us and says, hey, I need a logo with an owl holding a baseball bat, or, because we're the owls, we're not just going to start into it. We're going to ask them a lot of questions. So we have a long discovery process. Well, not long. We have a lot of questions we're going to ask to really understand who the customers are, because we're not designing it for you, the business owner. We're designing it for your customers, because they're the ones who have to respond to this. Once we have all of those parameters figured out, all the requirements and an understanding of what needs to happen here, we still don't know what it's going to look like. So we then go into thinking with our hands. That's how we talk about it. I don't know if people learn this anymore. Thumbnail sketches are really tiny, really fast sketches, and we'll do hundreds of those based around, if it was the shrimp tank, we would do hundreds and hundreds of sketches, and then we're gonna show those to you, the client. We're going to walk through everything that worked or seems to be working, everything that is a total dead end, so that you understand how we're thinking, how we're understanding the problem, and you're going to see how that's coming to life. There will be garbage in there that we can laugh at. There will be really interesting things that actually are worthwhile. There will be things that look disturbingly like your competitors sometimes. It just, everything comes out. And in looking through that and talking through everything we're thinking about together, our clients trust us, trust what we're recommending. They also feel really comfortable telling us what's not working, because we're showing them what's not working and talking about what's not working. So if something's not working, it's already on the table. They can say something isn't working for them. Anyway, that was too long there, but we do all that. And when the client comes along with us, they get to help us keep that course corrected in the right direction. But that's how we start.
I got to say one thing before, Craig. I'm going to let you ask your last question before we, because it's been fascinating. You said something that might be simplistic for people in your world, and it's kind of like a duh for you, but it wasn't for me. The concept of making a logo for the client, not for the business owner, because I would have to think that most business owners, I would point the finger at me, making the logo because we like it, because there's something unique about it, or special, or fond, or something that go into it very self-centered, as opposed to looking at who's actually going to look at it. And when you said that, it just this light just came. It's like, wow, I didn't think about that.
Yeah, that is a thing. When we usually are able to conduct our meetings in such a way that the word like doesn't come up very often. If it does, we kind of raise our hand and say, okay, so everybody remember, we're tying this work to this strategy that you already have in place, or that we helped you put in place, and these goals for the project, and your audience is this, and that's why we're recommending this. Doesn't really matter ultimately if you like it. If you own a very successful ballet studio, but you love Metallica, really your personal likes are not going to come into the branding of your very successful ballet studio, because if they do, you're going to go out of business.
I kind of want to see the logo for a Metallica oriented ballet studio.
I know, I was thinking that as I said it.
I do
that was
too.
a bad example.
I kind of feel like there might be a niche there. It could be a whole franchise. All right.
Metal ballet.
All right. So I've been thinking, like, what's a good way? What's a good final question? I just say, over the next decade, because we have seasonal decades of both business and design and styles. Is there anything that you're looking forward to in the coming decade, either technically or visually, that you just want to like reflect on? And if not, make something up.
The thing that comes to mind, and I don't know if this actually answers your question or not, but one of the things that I had some terrible employment experiences in my life in the past. Managers who were not bad people, they were just put in a role that they were not equipped to handle, and I probably wasn't making it easier for them. I want Chalkbox to be around in 10 years. I want my role to be somewhat diminished, because other people can probably do all the things I do better than I do. But I want it to be really hard to quit Chalkbox, really hard to quit. And if I can do that, that would be wonderful.
That is really great. All right, Josh, thank you for being a guest here on the Shrimp Tank. For our listeners that want to get in touch with you or learn more about Chalkbox, how can they find you? Where should they go?
You are very welcome, listeners, to email me. My email address is josh@chalkboxstudio.com. And I'm also on LinkedIn. You can find me there. And I believe Dan's going to include links for all the sorts of things that you'll need in the write-up for this show.
Absolutely. And in fact, that's a perfect segue. You can check out all the replays and find Josh's contact information at shrimptankpodcast.com/Seattle, where you can get all the most recent episodes, or follow us on whatever your podcast player of choice is. iHeartRadio, Apple, Google. I use Overcast. And please, click like on YouTube, Facebook, follow us on Instagram. Just be part of our life. And I'll turn it over to Dan.
Josh, thank you very much for being on the show. I learned a lot, especially about you and your business, and had a great time. Craig, I knew you were going to get Overcast in there somehow. I would have been very disappointed had you not. Great to see you again, as always. Everyone, just do what Craig says. Like us on our Facebook page, live stream us. Let's have some fun with that. We have great guests just like Josh. Our next show will be, as it is every Wednesday at 12 p.m. Pacific. Wednesday, August the 9th, our guest will be consultant Robbie Samuels. The co-host for the show will be Linda Popke. In the meantime, be safe, be well, be prosperous, enjoy the sun if it's around where you are, because until next week, the shrimp is back in the tank. So long.
I've been feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond.